Hare Krishna all, welcome to Sugopika procession at short Srimad Bhagavatam class. So today we will be discussing from Canto 1, chapter number 18, verse number 18. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 1, Chapter 18, verse number 18. Sutta Uvacha Aho Vayam Janmam Vrito Adya Hasma Vidahanyu Vratyapi Viloma Jataha Dauskulyam Ahim Vidunoti Sigram Mahatmanam Abhidhana Yogaham. Word to word meaning, translation and purport by Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada ki Jai. Word to word meaning, Sutta Uvacha, Sutta Goswami said, Aho, how, Vayam, we, Janma Bhrita, promoted in birth, Adhya, today, Aha, clearly, Asma, have become Vridha Anuvritya, by serving those who are advanced in knowledge, Api, although, Viloma Jataham, born in mixed caste, Dauskulyam, disqualification of birth, ahim, sufferings, vidhunoti, purifies, sigram, very soon, mahatmanam, of those who are great, abhidhana, conversation, yoga, connection. Translation, Sri Suta Goswami said, O God, although we are born in a mixed caste, we are still promoted in birthright simply by serving and following the great who are advanced in knowledge. Even by conversing with such great souls, one can without delay cleanse oneself of all disqualification resulting from lower birth. So the purport is a little long. Maybe I will just share what are the points. So before that, I would like to offer my prayers. ॐ अज्ञानतिमिरान्धस्य ज्ञानाञ्जनाशलाकया चक्षुरुन्मिलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः श्रीचैतन्यमनोभीष्टं स्थापितं येन भूतले स्वयं रूपकथा मह्यं ददान्ति स्वपदान्तिकम् वन्देऽहं श्रीगुरु श्रीयुतापदकमलं श्रीगुरुं वैष्णवांश्च श्रीरूपं साग्रजातं सहगण रघुनाथान्वितं तं सजीवं साद्वैतं सावधूतं परिजनसहितं श्रीकृष्णचैतन्यदेवं श्रीराधाकृष्णपादान् सहगण ललिता श्रीविशाखान्वितांश्च हे कृष्णकरुणा सिन्धु दीनबन्धु जगत्पते गोपेश गोपिका कान्ता श्रीराधा कान्ता नमोऽस्तुते तप्तकाञ्चन गौराङ्गी राधे वृन्दावनेश्वरी वृषभानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये वाञ्छाकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्य एव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधार श्रीवासादि गौर भक्तवृंद हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 रामा 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 हरे हरे. So, Hare Krishna. Before I begin, I would request all the devotees to please bless me so that I can talk in line with, I can share some points in line with Srila Prabhupada's purport and in line with the Guru Parampara. So, in today's verse, we can see in the translation, Srila Prabhupada has written that Sri Suta Goswami said, "Oh God, although we are born in a mixed class, we are still promoted in birth simply by serving and following the great who are advanced in knowledge. Even by conversing with such great soul, one can without delay cleanse oneself of all disqualification resulting from lower births." So, here we can see that Suta Goswami was not born in a Brahmana family. So, previously we had seen how one of the qualifications for discussing Srimad Bhagavatam, that is the speaker of Srimad Bhagavatam, he has to be a Brahmana. But here we can see that Suta Goswami is not a Brahmana and he's been born in a mixed caste. Mixed caste here means that the mother of Suta Goswami belongs to a particular caste and the father of Suta Goswami belongs to a different caste. So basically, here Suta Goswami is not belonging to a Brahmana family. So, this does not fulfill the qualification for a Bhagavatam speaker if we see on this plane. But going forward in the purport, Srila Prabhupada has very nicely explained as to how Brahmana does not mean that in many of Srila Prabhupada's lectures, Srila Prabhupada mentions that Brahmana does not mean by birth one has to be a Brahmana. A person is called as a Brahmana only when he has those Brahmanical qualification, those Brahmanical qualities, only then he'll fall under the category of a Brahmana. And if you see Suta Goswami possessed all those qualities which a Brahmana has to possess. So we know how Suta Goswami was empowered by Balaram. So before it was Suta Goswami's father, Romaharsha, who was speaking to the who was speaking Srimad Bhagavatam to the rishis of Naimisharanya. And when Balaram comes, all the rishis of Naimisharanya they offer their respectful obeisances to Balaram, but Roma Harsha, he's sitting on the Vyasasan and he is filled with pride and he does not get up and offer respect. And Balaram tells that this is not the right attitude of a Bhagavatam speaker. A Bhagavatam speaker has to be very humble because he is imparting the transcendental knowledge to the others, to the listeners. The Bhagavatam speaker who is sitting on the Vyasasan, he has to be very humble. And Lord Balaram takes a blade of grass, and with that blade of grass, he kills Romaharsha. And after that, the rishis of Naimisharanya tell that so the Shravanam is being stopped, it has been interrupted, and they ask Balaram to give them a suitable speaker who can narrate Srimad Bhagavatam to them. So that is when they actually request the rishis of Naimisharanya request Balaram to empower Romaharsha's son, that is Suta Goswami, to speak Srimad Bhagavatam. So Suta Goswami was not an ordinary person, right? He was empowered by Balaram to speak Srimad Bhagavatam, and that is how Sutta Goswami gave the transcendental knowledge to the rishis of Naimisharanya. In the purport, in the first paragraph, Srila Prabhupada is mentioning that Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu followed this principle in pursuance of Vedic usages, and by transcendental association he elevated many low-born or those qualified by birth, those disqualified by birth or action to a status of devotional service and established them in the position of acharyas or authorities. He clearly stated that any man, whatever he may be, whether a Brahmana or a Shudra by birth or a householder or a mendicant in order of society, if he is conversant with the science of Krishna, he can be accepted as an Acharya or Guru or spiritual master. So here, what as I had mentioned it earlier, that how in those days only Brahmanas could during the time of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, only Brahmanas could have access to the Vedic knowledge, because they were thinking that anybody who is born in a Brahmana family, they automatically become Brahmana. But Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he surpassed all this, and he got in the principle of Chaturvarna Maya Srishtam Guna Karma Vibhagasha. That means depending upon the guna and karma, what are the qualities a person has, and depending upon what is the karma, what is the activity they do, a person is being qualified as a Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya, or Shudra. And that is what here Srila Prabhupada has also mentioned in the purport. Srila Prabhupada is mentioning that one does not become qualified or disqualified to become a Brahmana by birth, but it depends upon the qualities he has. Right? So if anybody, even if he is a Shudra, and if that Shudra has the qualities of Brahmana and he is well versed in the Vedic literature, then he can be accepted as a spiritual master or as a guru. So here if we see Suta Goswami, he was born to a mixed class, right? He was born to a lower caste. That is what Srila Prabhupada is writing. He was not born in a Brahmana family. Then how is it possible that Suta Goswami has acquired all these transcendental qualities, all the qualities of a Brahmana, which is usually possessed by Brahmana? So, Srila Prabhupada is mentioning that Suta Goswami learned the science of Krishna from great rishis and authorities like Sukadev Goswami and Vyasadev, and he was so qualified that even the sages of Naimisharanya eagerly wanted to hear from him the science of Krishna in form of Srimad Bhagavatam. So here we have the answer for the question, and how wonderfully Srila Prabhupada has written in his purport, telling that the qualification that Suta Goswami, how did Suta Goswami acquire this qualification to sit on the Vyasasan and recite Srimad Bhagavatam, narrate Srimad Bhagavatam to such exalted personalities like rishis of Naimisharanya, was because he had acquired the transcendental knowledge from the right source. That is, he had acquired it from authorities like Shukadev Goswami and Vyasadev. So, just by hearing Krishna Katha, and from the right authority, there are two aspects here. That is, one is hearing Krishna Katha, and from the right authorities, Suta Goswami transcended these he transcended these very basic things such as caste, creed, or it could be a particular sect. So all this Suta Goswami transcended over all these, and he became qualified to narrate Srimad Bhagavatam. So here Srila Prabhupada mentions that Shukadev Goswami is double qualified. Why is Suta Goswami double qualified in spite of being born in a lower caste family? Srila Prabhupada mentions that his double qualification is because he has heard it from great souls like Sukadev Goswami and Vyasadev, And another that is the first qualification. And the second, how he became double qualified, is because he's preaching it. Suta Goswami is preaching the same message that he had heard from Shukadev Goswami and Vyasadev to the rishis of Naimisharanya, and that is why he is double qualified to narrate Srimad Bhagavatam. So we'll just see some of the instances from the pages of Srimad Bhagavatam, how Krishna Katha, by hearing Krishna Katha from the right source, has helped people who are born in the family of Shudras, Yavanas, Mlechas to transcend their birthright and become a pure devotee of the Supreme Lord. So we can see the story of Narada Muni and Mrigari. So we all know how Mrigari, he was a hunter and he was killing animals half dead. So, and he was, enjoying that entire scenario of the half dead animals, the suffering they were going through. Mrigari was enjoying it. He was killing the animals after, and he was enjoying the pain the animals were going through. And it so happened that Mrigari met Narada Muni, and Narada Muni, he imparted the transcendental knowledge to Mrigari, and because Mrigari heard it from the right source, and he heard the right thing. He heard Krishna Katha from the lotus mouth of Narada Muni, and because it was coming from the mouth of Narada Muni, who is a pure devotee of the Supreme Lord, such Krishna Katha, it pierced the heart of Mrigari, and he became a devotee. And as a result, we know Mrigari was the person who became Valmiki, and he wrote Ramayana. And it is such a wonderful scripture. And so he was, if you see, Mrigari was born in a family of a Shudra, right? He was doing an activity of a Shudra, but because he got the transcendental knowledge, because he was imparted with the transcendental knowledge from an authoritative source like Narada Muni, he could later go on and become a great devotee of the Supreme Lord. So all these, the birthright, discriminating a person on the basis of their caste, or the color, or anything which depends upon the material body, the external part. So all the external features does not make one a devotee of the Lord. It is the devotion that attracts the Supreme Lord. It is not the external feature, it is not the material body, because of which one has to be, one becomes a Brahmana or a Shudra. It is based on the qualities that a person has acquired. And that is what here, even in case of Suta Goswami, right? Suta Goswami, he was also born in a Shudra family, but because transcendental knowledge was given to Suta Goswami, he became a great Vaishnava. And even we can see in case of Narada Muni's life. So Narada Muni, also, he was a son of a maid servant. I'm sure we would have heard about it in a more detailed manner in the beginning chapters of Srimad Bhagavatam. How Narada Muni's mother, she performed devotional service. She rendered service to the rishis, and she was, honoring the remnants of those sages whom she was serving. And when she was doing all this, when she was performing all this devotional service and menial service, she was carrying Narada Muni in her womb. And knowing or unknowingly, Narada Muni got this benefit. So if you see the translation, Srila Prabhupada mentions that simply by serving and following the great who are advanced in knowledge, one will be promoted in their birthright. So Narada Muni was born to a maid servant. But what did Narada Muni's mother do? she served the people who she served the sages, and they were having this transcendental knowledge, and they blessed they because of the service that Narada Muni's mother did. Narada Muni got the transcendental knowledge, right? He was imparted with the transcendental knowledge. So even though Narada Muni was born in a lower caste, he could transcend the birth he could transcend his birthright, and he became a devotee of the Supreme Lord. And it was because of the devotional service that Narada Muni's mother performed. So that is one of the example, and that is one of the pastime from Srimad Bhagavatam. And another thing here we can see is Haridas Thakur. Srila Prabhupada, as mentioned in the purport, the second paragraph, that Lord Sri Chaitanya revived the original Vedic system, and he elevated Haridas Thakur to the position of Namacharya, or the authority in preaching the glories of the holy name of the Lord. Although His Holiness Srila Haridas Thakur was pleased to appear in a family of Mohammedans. So we all know how Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur, he was born in a Muslim family, and every day Chaitanya Mahaprabhu used to get Mahaprasad from Jagannath Mandir, and he used to give it to Haridas Thakur, because Haridas Thakur was a Mohammedan. He was a Muslim, and he was not allowed to enter into the temple of Jagannath Puri because of certain restrictions laid down in the temple. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu himself, in his lotus hands, he used to get the prasadam for Haridas Thakur, and he used to ensure that Haridas Thakur would honor the prasadam. And if so, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he revived this entire, original Vedic system, that one is classified as a Brahmana only if they have the qualities of a Brahmana. And Haridas Thakur exhibited all these exemplary qualities of a pure devotee of the Lord, and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu awarded him the name as Namacharya. He is Acharya for the Nama itself. So he is Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur. So he chanted around 3 lakh names of the Lord every single day. So if somebody would be classifying a person on the basis of their caste, then Chaitanya Mahaprabhu would never have given Haridas Thakur the position of an acharya. The two is an acharya for the holy name. We all know how merciful the holy name is, and he is the acharya, or he is the guru for the holy name of the Lord. That position was given to Haridas Thakur by the Supreme Lord himself, because the Supreme Lord did not distinguish anybody based on their caste or creed or their birthright. The Supreme Lord saw them from the perspective of the soul, right? The soul does not belong to any caste or creed. The soul eternally belongs to the Supreme Lord, and in this way, Haridas Thakur was awarded this position of Namacharya by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And if we see now in the present scenario, our Srila Prabhupada, we know how Srila Prabhupada, he went to the foreign countries. He went to Paschatya Desha. He went to a foreign country, a complete foreign land, and there he converted all these mlechas and yavanas. He did not only make them pure devotees of the Supreme Lord, but what did the Srila Prabhupada do? He made them as acharyas, as guru. So he elevated them into that position. So all of these people, they all were hippies, right? They were taking drugs, and they were always in that consciousness. They always wanted to be high. So Srila Prabhupada, even in his poster, the first poster that he made on the Second Avenue, he made that you can be high forever. So looking at these words, stay high forever, he attracted all these mlechas and yavanas, and he gave them the transcendental knowledge. And he elevated them from such a low birth. He elevated all of them and made them acharyas. So we can see how Srila Prabhupada has given such wonderful devotees, and because of these devotees, the International Society of Krishna Consciousness is running today under the guidance of these acharyas that Srila Prabhupada has given. Under their guidance, um, the Society of Krishna Consciousness is running. Even our Guru Maharaj, we can see when Guru Maharaj gives initiation, he does not see if a particular person is being born in a Brahmana family or whether he is born in a high caste family. No, Guru Maharaj never sees that. Guru Maharaj is only, seeing whether this person, even though we are unqualified, Guru Maharaj is imparting the transcendental knowledge, and he's giving the holy name and the beats, and elevating us, not only elevating us but even making us break the cycle of birth and death. He's connecting us with the supreme, accepting us as his disciples. So we can see how merciful the Guru, the Acharya is. He is being empowered by the Supreme Lord, and to give the transcendental knowledge. And by giving such transcendental knowledge, the Guru is, helping a Jivatma to transcend the cycle of birth and death. So coming down to the last line here, the one important thing Srila Prabhupada has mentioned is, in the last paragraph, Srila Prabhupada has mentioned about the power of a pure devotee. Here, Srila Prabhupada tells in the purport, the Ganges water is accepted as pure, and one can become purified by taking bath in the waters of the Ganges. But as far as great devotees of the Lord are concerned, they can purify a degraded soul even by being seen by a low birth, and what to speak of association. So, with regards to this line, there is a very wonderful kirtan that Narottama Das Thakur has written, and I'll just read out one of the verses from it. So that is the third verse, and the name of the song is Ek Bar Karuna Koro. And the third stanza states that Gangare Parasha Hoile Pasyate Pavan Dashane Pavitra Koro Ye Tumara Gun. So the translation is, after taking bath in the water of sacred Ganges many times, one becomes purified. But just by the sight of you, the fallen souls are purified. This is your great power. So here, Narottama Das Thakur is glorifying a Vaishnava. So here, Narottama Das Thakur is telling that one has to take bath in the Ganges. One has to go, he has to put a lot of efforts. He has to go take bath in the Ganges, and that time one becomes purified. But Narottama Das Thakur is telling that great Vaishnavas, the Vaishnavas are such that just by Vaishnavas having a sight, having a glance on a fallen soul, that soul becomes purified. Then what to speak of association? So here, if a Vaishnava can just purify one by giving their glance, so just imagine what benefit a Jivatma can get if that Vaishnava, that pure devotee, will associate with the fallen soul. So this is the power of Vaishnava Sangha, and by hearing from authoritative source, one can, one can acquire the transcendental knowledge by the mercy of the Vaishnava, and he can, he can surpass all the caste, creed, and whatever material disqualification is there. So these were some of the points from today's verse. I thank you all for your patient hearing. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Jagat Guru Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Patita Pavana Guru Maharaj ki jai. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Mataji.
Hare Krishna, Mataji.
Dandavat Pranam, Mataji.
Dandavat Pranam, Mataji.
It was a wonderful class, Mataji. And you told that to read Srimad Bhagavatam or preach Bhagavatam, it does not need any caste or religion. We can take up Krishna conscious, whatever religion or caste we are. Mataji. Thank you, Mataji.
Thank you, Mataji.
Hare Krishna Mataji, Dr. Pranam. Thank you so much for the very nice class, Mataji. We understood that caste is not an important. So you gave a various example of Mukari, how he wrote the Ramayana, and Srila Prabhupada makes peace to happy. So it's various example that is caste is not important, Mataji. Thank you so much for that points to be enlightened on the morning, Mataji. Thank you. Hare Krishna Mataji.
Hare Krishna Mataji, Dandavat Pranam. Very
Hare
nice
Krishna.
verse. And this verse you just explained that how Nichas and Yavanas also can be transformed, Mataji, just by an association of a pure devotee. Thank you so much, Mataji. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Sugopika ji.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Dandavat Pranam.
Dandavat Mataji. Thank you for this morning session. It was very nice. Very key points were there. That Sutta Goswami was, his marriage was, they say, Pratiloma, Anuloma marriage. There is a differences. Those days, it is not a caste in the sense, it is Varna ashramas. A higher Varna ashrama could not marry from a lower ashrama, Varna and ashrama. That aspect was there. In fact, it was very clear, as Srila Prabhupada wrote, that Shukadev Goswami didn't tell Sutta Goswami, you cannot sit here, get out, or something like that. He says, you can please, the only qualification you need in the two verses behind, before we found out, is eagerness to hear. So he just, based on the eagerness, he sat down, and because he heard from a pure devotee, he became a wonderful pure devotee.